All right, welcome back to the revised ServSafe course book, 8th edition update. If you are new to this channel, just want to welcome you all. We have culinary students from all around the country and the world that tune in for these PowerPoints to help them gear up for their industry certification exam. So today I want to go over Chapter 1, okay? Chapter 1, Keeping Food Safe. All right. So after completing this chapter, you should be able to explain what a foodborne illness is and how to determine when one has occurred. You'll be able to summarize the challenges to food safety and the 5 common risk factors that can cause a foodborne illness. We will identify types of contaminants and state the methods of how to prevent those contaminants from spreading. We will define TCS foods and ready-to-eat foods. TCS is short for temperature control for safety. I will tell you the 3 main high-risk populations. There are 3 of them. Summarize the food safety responsibilities of the person in charge of a food service operation. So I'll give you the abbreviation now. It's called PIC, P-I-C, if you're taking notes. You're going to hear a lot of abbreviations. I highly recommend you write them down. They're all very, very important, and they will all appear on your final exam. Whether you're taking a handwritten test by Chef Pesci or you're taking the actual industry certification exam written up by ServSafe. I want to make sure I emphasize that last bulletin there because a lot of people don't know what it means to be the person in charge. It might sound like common sense, but the person in charge is the one who literally is running the kitchen or holds the industry certification food service protection manager. Okay, that is the person in charge. There are usually 2 required on premise at all times, but we'll talk further more about that coming up. I will also let you know when you need to write down certain pieces of information and vice versa. If you're joining us and you're not in my culinary class, feel free to write as much information or as less or as little as you want. You need to get this slide down. So a foodborne illness is a disease transmitted to people through food. I want to make sure I emphasize this one because you need to understand this. It is the base foundation for the entire ServSafe platform. Okay, a foodborne illness is a disease transmitted to people through food. An illness is considered an outbreak. Okay, now we're talking people have gotten sick in our operation and it's been reported. And so I want you to pay attention to this one, okay? An illness is considered an outbreak when 2 or more people with the same symptoms after eating the same food. 2 people get sick, they go to the hospital. I did not know this, but I found this out recently when I was in the hospital due to food poisoning. But the hospital has no obligation to report it. It is the consumer who has to report that they got sick, went to the hospital. They need to report it to the health department. If you do not report it yourself, I don't know how it is in other states, but from what I found out down here from a hospital or a doctor, an MD, he told me that if you don't report it, they do not follow up. So it is imperative that if you ever do get sick, you report it directly to the health department. You never know who else might be getting sick. Bulletin number 2, an investigation is conducted by state and local regulatory authorities, also known as your health department, and the outbreak is confirmed by laboratory analysis, usually through the form of blood or a fecal sample. Okay? Those are the 2 main ways that they can find if you have a foodborne illness. The last one I call having the crawlies. Forgive my French, but you'll have the crawlies coming out of your, you know what. That's a little humor from Chef Pesci. But let me go back to the first bulletin, okay? 2 or more people So I'm going to do things a little differently. I'm actually going to pull up a video.
Chipotle once proclaimed itself the healthy alternative to traditional fast food, and it rode that message all the way to high profits. Lately, the company has found itself on the defensive for making hundreds of people sick and losing millions in sales. Here's how it all happened, but you might want to finish your burrito first. Chipotle's problems started back in July in Washington State. 5 people got sick with E. coli after eating at a Seattle store. It only made news in the local paper, but Chipotle became a national story when bad tomatoes in Minnesota stores infected 81 people with salmonella in August.
Linked to a salmonella outbreak here in Minnesota.
In response, Chipotle switched suppliers. About the same time in California, Chipotle told the local health department that 17 employees were sick with norovirus, an especially nasty intestinal bug. 234 people caught the virus. At this point, the company's top brass stayed relatively mum. These problems, though serious, appeared to be isolated, and Chipotle's executives may have thought they had them under control. That changed when a separate outbreak straddled state lines in late October.
As Chipotle stock fell today on news that it was temporarily closing dozens of stores in reaction to an E. coli scare.
Cue the CDC. The agency launched a multi-state investigation to pinpoint the source after Washington and Oregon linked dozens of illnesses to several Chipotle stores there. The company closed all 43 restaurants in the 2 states, and the CEO finally spoke.
I'm sorry for the people who got sick. They're having a tough time.
A steady parade of updates trickled out from the CDC, reminding customers nationwide of the company's woes. By December, 11 states had reported 60 cases of E. coli. Just as the company was trying to manage the fallout, norovirus struck again. 141 students at Boston College got sick, including an entire basketball team. In total, about 500 people became ill after eating at Chipotle in the second half of 2015. Chipotle caught a break in February when the CDC officially declared the multi-state E. coli outbreak over.
Unfortunately, we were unable to find anything that would have been in common between those restaurants.
For most companies, that's where the story would end. But not for Chipotle. The Department of Justice is now investigating the company for possible criminal activity in connection to food safety. Now, it'll be months before we get any answers on those questions. In the meantime, the company hopes that customers will have the stomach to come back.
So I don't share this information with you guys to hate on companies. I share this information because it's part of the education of what you're doing, but it's also to help you have credibility from other sources that the information we teach in the classroom related to ServSafe or National Registry, this stuff happens every single day. 4,000 people on average every single year get sick and are hospitalized due to a foodborne illness outbreak. Okay, there is one more place I do want to show you, and then we're going to go back to the PowerPoint.
We have a major recall to tell you about tonight. Bluebell ice cream is sold in 23 states, mostly in the South. 3 people have now died after eating Bluebell ice cream tainted with a toxic bacteria. And as Mark Albert reports, they ate it, of all places, in the hospital.
5 people at this hospital in Wichita, Kansas became infected.
All right, so I want to pause here for a second. This is a big one. We're going to be talking about high-risk populations coming up, so pay close attention to why these people were affected the most.
With listeria over the past year. At least 4 of them ate ice cream served by the hospital. The 3 people who died were all older adults. The ice cream was made at this Bluebell Creamery plant in Branham, Texas. The CDC says the machine that made these 10 products caused the outbreak. Bluebell CEO Paul Kruse tells CBS News the company removed all the tainted product from stores and food service customers last month.
Absolutely, no question, we would apologize.
Bluebell is responsible for this listeria?
No question.
Listeria symptoms include fever, muscle aches, diarrhea, and vomiting. Kansas Department of Health spokesperson Sarah Belfry warns there could be more cases.
Symptoms can appear 3 to 70 days after consuming this bacteria, and we continue to monitor the situation.
Listeria kills an average 260 people a year in the U.S. and sickens 1,600 according to the CDC. The largest nationwide listeria outbreak was in 2011 when 33 people died from tainted cantaloupe.
It was just tragic. I still think about him.
Paul Schwarz's father, Paul, a World War II veteran, was one of them.
We shouldn't have to take a bite of cantaloupe or ice cream and possibly get sick and die. It's just unconscionable that this happens.
Before we go back to the PowerPoint, I do want to pull up a website for you. Food safety news. If you search for that in Google, this is what you're going to get right up here. Okay, click on this and then navigate over to here and you will see outbreaks or recalls, but more specifically pay attention to outbreaks. These are all outbreaks that are being reported by this site, and this site is updated pretty often. It's quite scary to see the amount of outbreaks happening in our country and the world as often as they are. But this stuff happens, and that's why training material like this exists. So if you ever want to go back and research, and if you're looking for a way to research foodborne illnesses or outbreaks or recalls, this is a great source that we utilize in the classroom. So without further ado, we will go back to the PowerPoint. Okay, 2 or more people. I actually changed my mind on that. We're not going back to the PowerPoint. We're going back to YouTube.
If you're looking to buy a condo where you can work, live, eat.
Okay. I want you to go to this one.
Thank you, Tariq. Good afternoon, everybody. In the past 2 weeks, the number of cases of COVID-19 outside China has increased 13-fold, and the number of affected countries has tripled. There are now more than 118,000 cases in 114 countries, and 4,291 people have lost their lives.
Okay, 2 or more people. COVID, by the time that it was caught, it had already infected over 4,000 people and killed them. That's all it takes is 2 people. But here's the real issue to the food supply chain. By the time they find 2 or more people, and it's been reported, and an investigation has been brought up for the CDC or local regulatory authorities to go in and start investigating to see what's causing this illness, it has infected hundreds, thousands. Look at COVID. It infected millions. It killed millions of people. Who did it kill? It killed mostly the old population. Just like that listeria outbreak in that hospital with Bluebell killed the older population. You're going to see a trend here in a second. Okay? We're going to be talking about that coming up. So this stuff is very, very important. Take a second, pause this, write this stuff down. Okay, we got time. These are the challenges. Time, money is time. We heard that quote before. It's true. Language and cultural, literacy and education, pathogens, purchasing from unapproved suppliers, dealing with the high-risk population, and then staff turnover. These are the challenges that persist when there is a foodborne illness outbreak. Okay? I'm going to go to the next slide. You can pause this slide as well. I would write all these down. You heard it from Chipotle itself. They lost millions of customers. Their reputation went out. Obviously, negative media exposure is usually the next thing that follows when an investigation is broken. This lowers the staff morale. People aren't so excited to show up to work because now they're being watched by a lot of people and scrutinized for how they do things. Lawsuits and legal fees, those things follow. If you are sick and you found out, the company will have to pay restitution. And then if someone dies, it's even worse. Someone can go to jail. Staff missing work, that's because the operation's closed down, right? Increased insurance premiums. So we all pay, most people in America pay insurance, right? And so we pay our insurance with the hope that stuff like this never happens, whether it's car insurance or business insurance, liability insurance. But if something was to happen, you're now considered a high risk. And so insurance premiums are going to go up, which means you're going to pay more on insurance every month. And then you're going to have to stop. Remember, time is money. You're going to have to stop and retrain staff. So these are the effects of a foodborne illness outbreak. Let's see. I need you to get all three of these down. So there are three ways food becomes contaminated: biological, chemical, physical. Biological, bacteria, parasites, viruses. Chemical, your cleaning supplies. Physical, artificial fingernails, Band-Aids, glass, metal shards, all those things. Those are all examples of the three categories. We're going to talk more about that as we dive further and further into the ServSafe material. This is nothing new. This was on the old edition, 7th edition ServSafe material. I will let you guys know when there's updated information, or when I think, or when I have believed, based on what I have been teaching over the years, information has changed. So you can pause this slide, write these down. But again, biological, parasites, viruses, bacteria related. Chemical, your standard chemical cleaning supplies. So take a look at the picture there, right? He might be spraying a small amount, but the mist particles travel in the air, and what goes up must come, that's right, down. And then physical, you get your Band-Aids, your bones, your pits, your glass, metal shards, etc. Artificial fingernails. Take a second, you need to get all 5 of these written down. These are the 5 risk factors for foodborne illness. Purchasing food from unsafe sources, that's why we are constantly telling you, and you will see it pop up throughout the course, that you need to purchase from approved, reputable suppliers. Failing to cook food correctly, we're going to talk about the temperature danger zone. A lot of ServSafe is going to be based around temperatures, so make sure you pay attention to those temperatures and write every single thing down. That's why I'm creating these videos, so you can go back and pause and revise your notes as you persist through the material. Holding food at incorrect temperatures, very, very important. Again, that has to do with the temperature danger zone. We're going to talk about that coming up. Using contaminated equipment. That was why Blue Bell got in trouble. So you didn't hear the full report, and I didn't show the long version video. You can go back and research that yourself. But using contaminated equipment is what Blue Bell did. They weren't properly washing, rinsing, and sanitizing their equipment. They were just washing it with water. And eventually that bacteria was persistent enough that it grew and got people sick. And then the biggest one, I think this should be number 1, practicing poor personal hygiene. Practicing poor personal hygiene. That could be hand washing, showing up to work in dirty clothes, not showering on a regular basis. Those are all examples of poor personal hygiene practices. So pause this. You can go back. You can go forward. We're going forward. All right, you need to get this one down. Time temperature abuse. When food stays too long, a temperature is good for pathogens to grow. Let me reiterate that. Time temperature abuse. When food stays too long, a temperature is good for pathogens to grow. If you're taking notes, in parentheses, I want you to put temperature danger zone, or TDZ. Food has been time temperature abused when it has not been held at the correct temperatures. It is not cooked or reheated enough to kill off pathogens, bacteria, okay? It is not cooled correctly. And again, as we dive deeper into the chapters, we're going to talk about these more often and go a little bit more into depth with them. Cross-contamination, you need to have this down. Not to be confused with cross-contact in Chapter 3 when we talk about allergens, but cross-contamination has to do with bacteria, okay? When pathogens are transferred from one surface to another. The transfer of bacteria from one surface to another. This can happen when contaminated ingredients are added to food that receives no further cooking. Ready-to-eat food touches contaminated surfaces. A food handler touches contaminated food and then touches ready-to-eat food. Ready-to-eat food, if you're taking notes, is food that doesn't need any further cooking for it to be considered safe for consumption. So again, I'll let you take some time, write this down. You can pause this or move on. Poor personal hygiene, leading cause of foodborne illnesses in America, is related to this one right here. So pay close attention. Take a look at the image. What's he doing? He's scratching himself, right? Half the time, we don't even know that we're touching our skin or our hair or our ears. I think I was trying to say ear and hair at the same time. We don't know that we're touching our hair, our face. Half the time, we don't even know we're doing it. That's why we need to make sure we properly wash our hands, but most importantly, we're not just washing our hands, but we're washing it. ServSafe is going to use the term regularly. I use the term frequently. They both mean the same thing. You don't just come into the operation, wash your hands, go and cook, and then that's it. If you go to use the restroom, you come back, you're going to be touching door handles to come back into the classroom. You should wash your hands. You should wash your hands when you leave the bath, before you leave the bathroom, and after you return. And then you should wash your hands regularly throughout the lab. Our labs are 90 minutes. So you should be washing your hands at least 4, 5, 6 times, maybe more, maybe less. Personal hygiene. Poor personal hygiene can cause foodborne illness when handlers, okay? Now, person in charge and handlers, two different things. If you're taking notes, person in charge is abbreviated and will be abbreviated on the test as PIC. Make sure you have that one down. Person in charge, PIC. The food handler is the person that doesn't have the industry certification. So that's going to be like, so let's go back. Person in charge is going to be your GMs, your managers, your kitchen managers, your AKMs, your assistant kitchen managers, and then your food handlers are going to be people that work underneath you. Okay? When food handlers, and this is not just related to food handlers. I don't like that they're talking food handlers here. Okay? Anyone dealing with food, whether you're industry certified or not, you can still contaminate it through poor personal hygiene practices. Okay? Failing to wash their hands correctly after using the restroom, that one has been updated. We're going to talk about that. Coughing or sneezing onto food contact surfaces. Remember, it's mist particles. What goes up must come down. Touching wounds and then touching food. And then a big one, a huge one that I see way too often in the operations down here in Florida. Working while you're sick. I know a lot of companies, like for instance, and I'm not hating on Chick-fil-A. I love Chick-fil-A. Can't afford Chick-fil-A, but I love Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A requires their employees to get their shifts covered. If you don't get your shifts covered, you're required to show up and do your shift, whether you're sick or not. And if you don't show up, you can get written up for it. The problem I have with that is that now these companies, I get it. Listen, it's a business. They're after one thing, profits. Profits and the ability to run their company and grow it. But you're putting the general public at risk when you have your employees who are technically sick that should not be around food coming into work. So that's a huge one. Poor cleaning and sanitizing can cause a foodborne illness. So you'll notice now I'm speaking directly to my culinary classes. You'll notice that on your pre-checklist, on your lab sheets, I require you to grab a green bucket with soap and water, with soapy water, and with a rag, and a red bucket with sanitizer. And you're supposed to have those in your kitchens. You're not only supposed to have them in your kitchens because I'm requiring you to have them, but if the health department walks in, they're going to make sure that you have them. And if you don't have them, they're going to put on the violations that we did not have out those buckets. Okay? Poor cleaning and sanitizing can cause a foodborne illness when equipment and utensils are not washed, rinsed, and sanitized. It's important and imperative that you make sure you understand the premise behind that bulletin. It doesn't say rinse and then sanitize. It doesn't say sanitize and rinse. It says washed, rinsed, sanitized between uses. That's how we prevent the spread of pathogens. That's how we prevent the spread of bacteria. That's how we prevent people from getting sick. Remember, cross-contamination, the transfer of bacteria from one surface to another. Number 2, food contact surfaces are wiped clean instead of being washed, rinsed, and sanitized. Again, following that method. I understand you might be in a rush. I understand you might be lazy. I understand you may not really care. But your ignorance is what's going to get people sick. And so we need to make sure we are properly doing things. Always wash, rinse, sanitize. Right? When you get to the 3-compartment sink, you don't just take your dishes and throw them in a sanitizer, right? You wash them, hopefully, Lord willing. You rinse them to get off all that soap, that chemical contaminant, and then you sanitize it. Hopefully you're sanitizing for at least 30 seconds because we use Quat sanitizer, and you're supposed to, according to Quat sanitizer, for it to be effective, it has to be submerged in the sanitizing solution for a minimum of 30 seconds. And then you're pulling that stuff out and putting on the drying rack. Those are the proper methods. That's how we prevent the spread of bacteria. That's how we prevent people from getting sick. Wiping cloths are not stored in the sanitizing solution between uses. Yeah, it's a big one. So we take out the rag, we squeegee it, we wipe down our surfaces, and then we leave the rag either out or partially in the water and then partially draping out. You have to have it in the water so that that sanitizer can effectively kill off any bacteria on the cloth itself. Feel free to pause if you need to write this information down, but we are moving on. TCS food, if you're taking notes, TCS is short for temperature control for safety. TCS is short for temperature control for safety. TCS food is food that requires time and temperature control to limit pathogen growth. The easiest way to remember this is if it needs to be refrigerated, it stays refrigerated. If you're pulling cheese out of the refrigerator, the proper way to pull cheese out of the refrigerator is pull it out, put it on ice until you're ready to use it. Put it back on ice or put it back in the refrigerator. If you're pulling milk or sour cream out of our refrigerators, you need to make sure you take what you need and put it back. If you leave it on the counter, then you're time temperature abusing. You're giving that product the potential to grow bacteria. Why? Because it's going to start to come up to temperature. And we're going to talk about the temperature danger zone coming up. So TCS food is food that requires time and temperature control to limit pathogen growth. Ready-to-eat food, also known as RTE, is food that can be eaten without any further preparation, washing, or cooking. So it's going to be your fruits, your vegetables. You technically don't need to cook every food product for it to be considered safe. All right, big one. Get this one down, okay? Bluebell, COVID. What population did it kill off the most? It killed off the elderly. Why? Because their immune system is on the way out the door. So these people have a higher risk of getting a foodborne illness. Preschool age children, right? That's our toddlers. Their bodies are still developing. Their immunity system isn't as strong. Elderly people, their bodies are already weakening. Their immune system is weak and is on the way out the door, right? They're getting older. It's the risks of getting older. And then people with a compromised immune system. These are going to be your people that are hospitalized. They're in a hospital. They're dealing with cancer, HIV, AIDS. Okay? All people with compromised immune system. People with Crohn's disease, all these other diseases, celiac disease. These are all people at high risks. High risks meaning they have a higher risk at contracting the foodborne illness, potentially getting hospitalized, and potentially even dying. Still today, I mean, COVID's way past, right? I still see older populations still wearing masks and younger populations, but mostly the older population still wearing masks. I think that's sad. I don't think that's a way of life, but that's my personal opinion. They might be doing it for health reasons, right? They know they're at risk. Preschool age children, your toddlers, your infants. If you look on the back of honey in an asterisk, it's a warning, essentially. It will tell you, do not let infants consume. Could potentially cause death because they found some kind of bacteria in honey reacts with the weak immune system already in pre-age school children, and they found that people or toddlers were dying, getting sick. All right, moving on. The person in charge, we've talked about this, okay? In order for the person in charge to be the person in charge, you must be certified as a food protection manager or a food service professional with National Registry. You must be on site during operation hours. I think in the state of Florida, you're required. This is an assumption. I think you're required to have at least 2 people with the certification at all times, an AM and a PM, a morning shift and an evening shift. A certified food protection manager must show they have the required knowledge by passing the test from an accredited program like ServSafe or National Registry. National Registry is the food service professional. According to the FDA, food safety managers should ensure that an operation meets the standards that include monitoring staff hand washing, making sure that staff are washing their hands. I need to get better at coming around to your stations and saying, hey, listen, I want you guys to go wash your hands so that we can re-emphasize this importance behind this information. Ensuring that temperature control for safety, that's TCS food, is cooked to the required temperature. Inspecting deliveries. I go a little bit more in depth into inspecting deliveries on Chapter 3. Training staff on food safety. That's what we're doing here. We do it twice a year. Once before we begin cooking at the beginning of the school year and once to the end. And you're going to get this information at all 3 levels, culinary 1, 2, and 3. And then notifying guests. Notifying guests.